Hey crafty friends, it's Laura for Crafty Not Shifty, and today's video is a collaboration video. So I'm going to have 5 techniques here on this video and then a link in the description below to the additional 5, so you get 10 techniques using stencils in total. So do make sure you check out that information to see all 10 techniques. Let's dig right into my first example. So I really like to add a medium through my stencil, whether this is something like transfer gel, which is what I'm using today, or Gina glitz for a bit of sparkle, or maybe Nouveau embossing mousse. I really like to add the texture through the stencil, and this one's particularly interesting because you can go ahead and add some foil, or like I'm going to do today, you can add flocking. So I've taped everything down and I'm working on a laminated piece of card. I used a small spatula just to scoop out some of the product, and then I'm using this larger spatula, which is great because you can just swipe that down your card front and it covers everything, so it's really easy to get a nice smooth design. So you don't want to let that product dry on your stencil or your spatula, so make sure you go ahead and wash those and then leave this piece to dry completely. You'll see my nail varnish is off here. I actually left this for a few days, totally unnecessary. It will be dry much quicker than that. And then I've cut down a piece of this flocking, which I wish you could understand the texture. It feels so fun. And I'm actually grabbing my Mink machine. You can use a laminator, and there are instructions on the back of the flocking which explain how to use this particular product with, I believe it's the Royal Sovereign laminate, which is recommended by Therm. So I ran that through and let it cool down, and then I'm just peeling this away, and you'll see anywhere where that transfer gel was in place, the flocking has actually stuck. And you could use this with foil as well. So I like to create texture through my stencils using either a product like this or something that works on its own, like an embossing mousse or a glitz gel. So I went ahead and finished this up and turned it into a card using a "thank you for being so sweet" sentiment and some gems, and I'll have all of the products shown in the description below. So for the second example, I like to use a building stencil. So something like this from Concord and Ninth, where you lay down the stencil and you blend through a series of colors and then turn the stencil. So I've sped this up a little bit just to show you how it works. Once you've done that first layer, you pick up your stencil, clean it off, and then just turn it one rotation, lay it down, stick it back in place, and then go ahead and ink blend. You don't need your MISTI for this, but because it gives me a nice right angle corner to press everything into, I know that everything's perfectly aligned, so it's a little bit easier to use it this way. But these aren't the only types of building stencils. You can get ones like this that create really cool backgrounds. They also have ones that make smaller images. Or you can get stencils from, I know Altenew have a few, they have like a cube builder. And I think working with something like this that isn't just one particular image, something that you can rotate and twist and get a different design, is really fun. And you can definitely try this with stencils that aren't supposed to work as building stencils. You can lay down your stencil, ink through it, shift it slightly and lay down another color, and you can get a really fun effect that way. So here I've completed all of my rotations, and then I just trimmed this piece down and used a sentiment from Gina We Fit Together, and a couple of gems to finish this off. Okay, so for this third example, things are going to get a little bit messy. I've grabbed a card panel and some double-sided adhesive. This is Picket double-sided adhesive, and I'm pressing that down over my card panel and then I'll trim it out. So essentially I've just created a sticky surface on my card panel. I'm going to go ahead and peel that sticky surface back, and then I'll grab one of my stencils and position this down on top of that sticky paper. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing this with a super fine detail stencil because it might actually get stuck and you might find it quite difficult to peel away. But because this has got quite a lot of solid space, you can really get some purchase there and peel it up when you're finished. But do be careful if you try this. So I'm going to grab a series of glitter. I'm going to be using Arteza or Arteza glitter, and I'm starting off with this orangey colour right in the centre, and I'm trying not to fill the whole panel because I want a ombre effect on this here. So I'll tip that glitter in place and then shake it away, and this is where it gets really messy. Anytime I work with glitter, I end up with it kind of everywhere for goodness knows how long. I looked at my dog the other day and he was completely covered in glitter after working with it, so nobody's safe. So I'll go ahead and tip any of that excess back into the jar and then give my scrap piece of paper a good shake so I'm not contaminating the colours, and then I'll come in with this really bright pink colour. You could definitely make this easier by just using one colour, but I wanted to have that orange colour blend into the pink. So I'm just shaking that, kind of making sure all of those gaps in the centre in the stencil are definitely filled with glitter, and then tapping away the excess, and I'll do that same cleanup. So I grabbed the release paper from the Picket adhesive, and I'm using that just to really burnish and press that glitter in place before I go ahead and peel the paper away from the stencil. I'm getting glitter all over me at this point. So again, just be careful. You don't want to rip or tear your stencil or your paper, of course. So do take care. They will kind of stick together, but as long as it's quite a solid design, you should be okay. So then I'm grabbing a third colour because obviously anywhere where that stencil was kind of protecting the paper now has exposed adhesive. So I'm grabbing a purple glitter and using that as the final layer. Then I put it inside of a folded piece of scrap paper just so I could really burnish everything in place. This time I'm actually using a, what is this called? Oh wow, my brain's completely left me. But there we go. I burnished everything in place, and then you end up with this beautiful background. It's actually so shiny that you can't see the detail on camera unless it's kind of at an angle like this, but it is so very pretty and so shiny in real life. Or in person, I guess this is real life. And then to finish this up, I trimmed it down and used a Hugs die cut sentiment from, I believe, Concord and 9th. Again, it will be linked in the description below. So this next example is one of my favorites, and I actually saw Jennifer Maguire using this technique, and she has a really detailed video showing how to do this. I'm going to take you through a quicker run through because this is a shorter video, but I've grabbed a stencil and I've laid that over the top of a piece of card that's inside my Gina K Wreath Builder stencil. So this is 2 stencils, and I've just masked off a section here. Then I'm going to grab some of my Tailored Expressions inks and those Tailor Expression blending brushes, which are so beautiful. And of course, I had to get the coordinating inks that match the colours of the handles of the brush because I'm a little bit extra like that. So I'm going to go ahead and blend through just on the right hand side of that mask line. And then when I'm done with each colour, I will clean the stencil. I'll lift it up. See, I created that little hinge at the top using purple tape. And then I'll quarter turn, move the piece of paper that's inside of the Gina K Wreath Builder system over 1 notch. So I started in a square orientation and then I moved it across to the diamond orientation. Then I'll blend my next colour. So this is the candy corn colour. And then again, I'll go ahead and clean this up and also clean my work surface. And then I'll take that piece of paper and turn it another rotation. So you'll see it will go to a square orientation again, and I'll just keep working through all of the colours, rotating it round, so you get this really fun design with the stencil that you've created with the Wreath Builder system, which is another type of stencil. You could of course just use the Wreath Builder to create a beautiful wreath, which is what it's designed for, but this is a fun way to get an extra use out of that stencil. So once you're finished, it will look something like this, and then to finish it off, I just added a simple sentiment, also from Gina K, and mounted it onto some Gina K cardstock. Okay, so we are sped up again. As you can see, I'm doing some basic ink blending using Distress Oxides. You can use any water reactive ink for this technique. So your Distress Oxides would work really well, as would your original Distress ink formulas. And there are a bunch of other water reactive inks as well. I believe Hero Arts have a line of water reactive inks now, as well as some other companies. So I've gone with an orange to pink to purple colour blend, and then I've laid my stencil over the top and taped it in place. And I'm grabbing a damp baby wipe. There's nothing else on this, it's just a damp baby wipe, and I'm rubbing that through the stencil just so it will allow the moisture to go through any of the gaps in that stencil and lift away some of the colour. So as that ink reacts with the water, it will leave behind a ghosting impression of your stencil. I'll go ahead and peel that up after dabbing up any of that excess moisture or ink, and heat set that with my heat tool. So you can already see that it's reacted, but as you apply the heat and heat set that, certainly with this particular ink, the reaction kind of seems to intensify. So to turn this into a card, I heat embossed a sentiment, just a note, and I also heat embossed with that same embossing powder from Love from Lizzie right around the outside edge of my note card so it would coordinate. So there are your 5 examples from my channel. Don't forget to check out the link in the description below for the coordinating video where you'll see the other 5 examples, and also in the description below are all of the products used in today's video. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, do make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. But that is all from me today. I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.